I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 PM. This is a special meeting for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 for budget deliberations. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
I will. Tim Hale.
Here.
Stephanie Nowers.
Here.
Dee McKee. Robert Yunt.
Here.
Moki Tu.
Here.
Dimitri Fonoff.
Here.
Ron Bernier.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? See, hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. If you all stand, please, for the pledge. Caleb, would you lead us in the pledge, please? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is audience participation. And so anyone that, okay, all right. So we'll see if anybody has signed up, but even if you haven't, you're still welcome to address the assembly. And Caleb, do we have anybody on the line? We do not have anybody online, so we'll wait and see if anybody has signed up. No. So is there anyone here that, even though you didn't sign up, that you would like to address the assembly? Okay, seeing no one and still no one online, Caleb, right? We will go ahead and close audience participation. And then the next item, business, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 23023, an ordinance appropriating monies from the central treasury for the borough operating funds, enterprise funds, education operating fund, and capital funds, establishing the rate of levy for all borough functions for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, and setting the surcharge rate for the wireline and wireless enhanced 911 systems for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, will you please move the legislation?
I'm sorry. Let's see which.
Read this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I move to adopt ordinance 23-023.
okay, thank you. Discussion, and I know we have some amendments. How do you want to handle this, Madam Clerk?
If I could go over the packets for the people, especially for the people that's only done this once or have never done this. You do have a packet of handouts for the amendments tonight. If you flip past the first page, these amendments are in budget type order and then by order of being received. And up in the right-hand corner, we number our amendments. So the first amendment would be Assembly Members 2's, and as soon as Assembly Member 2 would move that, the mayor would say that's amendment number 1. And if you guys can go ahead and number that amendment. This is so just in case there's any reconsiderations, you can just say you move to reconsider amendment number 5.
Okay. Ready? So Assemblyperson 2, do you want to move amendment number 1, please?
Yep, I'd like to move amendment number 1.
Okay. Would you like to speak to it?
I just,
I'm sorry.
okay, so I move to amend capital project, enterprise fund, solid waste, and delete the waste container replacement and refurbishment project in the amount of $200,000.
Okay. Would you like to speak to it, sir?
I went over and looked at the cans, and just with some light work done to them, they can be used for more years.
Okay.
So I felt that $200,000 to either buy new cans, they had plenty of them in stock sitting there, and then to refurbish them, it was I think it was minor work to refurbish them.
Okay. All right. Further discussion on the amendment number 1. Assemblyperson Nowers, go ahead.
Can we just have maybe a staff report on what the status is of those and what sort of repairs and replacement, if we're on any kind of schedule? Or I'm not familiar with that, but I wouldn't mind hearing from staff on what they think about the status of those and what this money, what sort of replacement and repairs would have been done with it.
Yeah, so through the mayor to Ms. Nowers, I won't object to this. I mean, there are repairs, as Mr. Tu alluded to, that need to be done. I appreciate that I got a call yesterday and that he went out and looked at it, as opposed to just making an amendment without putting eyes on. So he met with Jeff Smith, our solid waste division manager. They had a discussion. I'm sure Jeff would continue to advocate for these, but I don't see this as a large issue. I think if you look at the capital budget, it projects funding this year and the next 2 years. So I think there'll be opportunity if we do need to do a larger replacement or refurbishment in the future.
Further discussion?
Just to confirm, this is not in any way, shape, or form to lower the mill rate or anything. It's just to not spend the money and to leave it in the enterprise fund, correct?
Through the mayor to Mr. Ant, that's correct. This doesn't change any mill rates. It doesn't lower fees or anything at the landfill. It just takes away the authorization to spend this money on that project.
Further discussion on amendment number 1? Is there any objection to amendment number 1? You see, and hearing no one, and amendment number 1 is adopted. Okay, Deputy Mayor? Amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2. So area-wide fund, non-departmental, page 61, and education fund, page 220 and 221. I move to amend the area-wide fund, non-departmental transfer to education operating 445.220 by striking 77,846,459 and inserting 72,846,459 in its place. This is a decrease of $5 million. The education operating fund by striking transfer from area-wide 204-000- or .000.367-110 by striking 77,846,459 and inserting in its place 72,846,459. This is a decrease of $5 million. And the education operating fund by striking from education operating 204.000.406.100 $271,210,626 and inserting in its place $266,210,626. This is a decrease of $5 million. The above reduction will reduce the area-wide mill rate by 0.379 mils. And if I may, I'll speak to
Sure.
it briefly.
Go ahead, sir.
I think we've discussed this in extensively, and Stephanie and I moved this together. I think with the blessing of the school district and their great partnership that we've come to an agreement on. So I think everyone's fully aware of this, but if anyone has any questions, now would be a good time to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, sir. Assemblyperson Hale?
Yeah, so the school district asked us for less money than the 6.3 mils, and I think that's perfect. We'll give them exactly what they asked for.
Assemblyperson Nowers, did you want to say something since you're a joint presenter of this amendment?
Just again, because the school district is here, I appreciate the partnership and working together to make sure we have a stable source of funding for the district. But I think we've covered why this is happening because of our great increase in property values. And I think it's a good way to keep too much of the burden from falling on the property taxpayer and be able to fund borough operations and also the school district.
Anyone further discussion? Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
I'm not sure how to do this because I've not been through this before, but I think the $5 million is a start. But as a person being in the trenches and I see the waste and the ineffectiveness of the money that we keep throwing at the problem and it doesn't change anything. And every year, if we keep throwing money at it, it ought to make a difference, and it doesn't. So what do we need to do if it makes people more careful of how the money is being spent? Maybe because they'll have less, maybe people will start paying attention. But now you just like tar paper over it with money, and it just doesn't seem to be working. Our scores are abysmal. I wouldn't invest in a company that had performance like this, and anybody in this room I don't think would. And I'm there. And I don't see it coming to the classroom. I don't see it coming to the kids. I don't see it coming to the teachers. I do know kind of where it goes. If we got a 51 to 49%, how do you put it, ratio of administrative to actual teachers? I'm a teacher. Teachers about educating kids. The school district is support staff, just like our custodians are. They are there to support education. It ain't happening. So when I see this, everybody just says, oh, yes, let's just do this. That's like the emperor has new clothes. He really doesn't. If you take a look at this thing and you say, wait a minute, we've been doing this every year. Let's just do it again. I cannot, as a person in the trenches, abide by seeing this ineffective spending of taxpayers' money. I would want to see a better return on the investment, and I'm very passionate about this because I'm there. And it's not going to benefit me because I'm retiring at the end of this year, but by golly, I'm going to do everything I can to say, okay, I'd give you $40 million of an increase if you would make it show in the classroom, but when it's not, and that is the essence of it, it should show up with our students, and it does not. So I'm not sure how to do this, but I want everybody to understand, I'm there, I see it. And I think the average salary in the district is something like $73,000. And then I look at the salaries in administration, and they're like hundreds of thousands, 169,000 for the deputy. That's what it was last year. That's just base pay. 200 something for the superintendent. And these folks are not delivering the product. So why do we just keep doing this? Thank you. It needs to be. Do you know, let me just tell you something. The other day, they took 12 chairs out of my classroom. Why? Because they didn't have the funds to buy chairs to put in another classroom. And I said, okay, you can have them in the morning. I only got 29 kids, but in the afternoon, I got 44. Where are we going to put them? Stuff like that. I couldn't get a laptop until pretty much through the year. Why? Because we couldn't afford them. I'm telling you, this is, to me, it's obscene. I better say stop before I say any more. But if there's an amendment that I can put in here that says $5 million is a start, I'm willing to deal, but something's got to be done.
Okay. Yeah, if now the clerk can correct me, if you had a figure, you could do an amendment, like say you wanted to change the 5 million to something, an amendment on that would be appropriate. And then we would have to vote on that amendment. But regarding, making it more definite than that, I don't think we have an option, do we? Madam Clerk?
Through the mayor to Assembly Member McKee, right now we're in budget deliberations for what the borough is going to give the school district out of the borough money.
Yeah.
So right now we have an amendment that's on the floor to decrease the borough's give to the school district by 5 million.
Got it.
If you want to increase that decrease, right now you would say, I move to strike the 5 million and insert whatever number you're thinking. And that would be a secondary amendment that's on the floor.
And I'd like to do that because when I asked a question the other day, that money was saved on the backs of the kids that couldn't get to school because there was a strike. And the contract for that school, that company is 10 years. So something's haywire. So if you want an amendment, I'd say, 5 million to start, let's go for 10. I don't know if I'll get that from anybody, but for God's sake, we got to look at it.
You can accept that as an amendment?
Do you want to make an amendment then to change the 5 million
Yeah,
figure
I
into
do.
what?
10?
To 10, okay.
Because if they can get rid of 5 million that easily, I bet there's another 5 million somewhere in there that we could save.
Okay, so now the discussion will be on the amendment to change the figure from 5 to 10. So anyone care to discuss? Yes, Assemblyperson Hale.
Yeah, I'd just say that, when you talk about the administration and the teachers and not passing the money down through to the teachers and to
Yeah.
the students, that is an important problem. But I think that what's going to happen if you reduce the money is that reduction is going to fall straight on the teachers and the students and not on the administration. So I would have to oppose the change to 10.
So you're saying that wouldn't keep them straight, that the situation, well, for God's sake, then we need to change something, because it is wrong when a teacher, the PTR is a ridiculous system that they use, saying, well, Mrs. McKee has 44 kids and Mrs. Smith has 6 kids, split it down the middle, 25 people to each teacher. We got PTR going on. That's obscene. You cannot teach 44 kids in 49 minutes. I teach over 200 kids a day. So it's not coming to the teachers. It's not coming to the system. It is getting lost. And if So I guess maybe what you're saying is there'll be just less cream to go to the top if we do the 10 million?
I think that the burden would fall on the classrooms and not on the administration.
It can't. It just can't. It can't fall any more on the kids and the teachers than it already is.
So we can't tell them how to spend the money.
I do know that. Or
right?
do I know that?
So we don't have any control over where that burden falls.
I know that.
And I think that it would, when you describe how the money that we're giving them doesn't flow down to the classrooms, I think that the money that we were not giving them would definitely not flow down to the classroom.
You're probably right, and that's a terrible condemnation on the system, but yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Not that I'm going to give up on it, but
Okay.
whatever.
Deputy Mayor, you, discussion on the secondary amendment.
I am very sympathetic to your concerns and frustrations. As Tim mentioned, though, we cannot legally tell them how to spend their money. So the one big statistic that really worries me about where things are at with the school district right now is that it's only 51% teachers and 49% other, and that 49% actually, just so everyone is aware, does not include school bus drivers. So really, actually, less than 50% of the people who affect our students' education daily are teachers. So that does concern me, but I think the most appropriate thing to do would be to sit down with 3 school board members, not a majority, but 3, and discuss just that with them. And we take this up in the future. And really, when I say we, they need to take this up. This is the school board needs to fix this. I would agree with you as a parent.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
I would agree with you as a parent that it should be a higher percentage of the overall workforce who are teachers. But again, as Tim had said, we can't legally tell them how to spend the money. And I don't know that they could phase from 51% to 55 or 60% immediately. I think the appropriate thing to do would be to move forward with the 5 million right now, and then sit down with 3 school board members and discuss your vision with them. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's kicking the can down the road because this is what we do every year. We say, we really can't keep doing this, and then we keep doing it. So I may be the Lone Ranger here, but I am incensed, outraged, impassioned, whatever word you want to use, when it is not happening. And our poor kids don't get what they need because you cannot give them what they need because it is not being spent properly. So my thing would be, unless Tim is right, and he probably is, if we cut them, will the less cream rise to the top? I guess that's what we're looking at. That is, as I said, that's a condemnation of the system. I'm a 26-year educator. My whole heart and soul is in education. By the way, just so you know, and maybe you do, but Ed announced it the other day, I am considered one of the better educators in the state. I'm one of the top 20 educators in the state, according to not me, but a whole lot of other people. So I think I know what I'm talking about. And I am all about the kids. So we can sit up here and do this every year, but you've all probably heard my throwing newspapers on dog doo-doo. It doesn't smell and you can't see it. And then the next year you just throw more newspapers on the dog doo-doo. Well, you know what those newspapers are? That's the dollars. That's what we're doing every year. So I'm not going to give up. I will be the Lone Ranger. It'll be 6-1, and I'm okay with that. But the statement needs to be made. So I would like to leave my amendment as it is.
Okay, Assemblyperson Bernier, go ahead.
Last season, they operated on 70 million. And then with the prices of houses and stuff like that, we were looking at giving them 77 million, another 7 million higher than what they operated on this past season. And now it looks like they're telling us that they just need 3 more million. They don't need the other 5 million, right? So I think Dee's onto something, and I would give her my support on this. If not 10, then at least 8. So that's my feeling.
Okay.
So you're saying another 3? The 5 that they already gave back, and then the three additional on my. I'll go for 3. I'll just do for anything just to make a statement.
Secondary on the floor. We can't make another amendment.
Okay. You can't change it from 10. we'd have to vote that up or down, and then we could do another secondary amendment. Okay, Assembly Person Hours.
I am also sympathetic to and really appreciate your passion for the kids and what happens in the classroom. I think all of us as parents have seen things that, we would prefer to have funded in the schools if we were doing the strings. The chem lab would get a whole refurbishment, so the kids were using good equipment and not failing their lab experiments because the equipment's not good, or those things. But the things you're talking about, like, that needs to be taken up with the school district. Like, we need to take the school district, sit down with the school district budget and say, this is where you shouldn't be spending. I guess to me, this is like the state looking at us and saying, we don't think you're doing a very good job. Here, we're going to cut, we're going to take away school bond debt reimbursement. And then, without telling us what it is, without working with us to do it. So I just think that we're only 1/3 of the school district budget, right? And if you look at so we gave them 70 million last year, and this is to 73 million. That's about a 3 or 4% increase. That's not an extraordinary amount given inflation. I think I agree with Mr. Hale that, the blanket cutting, it doesn't help what you're talking about, which is how do you get the funding down to where you want it to go? And that's a conversation you have to have with the school district and with the community. So I feel like the school district deserves stability from the borough in terms of what we fund, so they're not having to make it up every year. And they went a long ways to meeting us this year without, under the agreement, it was going to be 7 million more. And that was, I think, we couldn't do that on the backs of the property tax owners. That was going to be a 10% increase. So I support the 5 million. I support you in sitting down with the school district if there's positions that you think need to be cut. But I think we need to be specific with them on their budget where they need to cut it, as opposed to we're just going to cut your budget additionally by a certain amount that we're just because we're frustrated. And then those same issues that you're talking about, the problems, they don't get solved. Like, that's not solving those issues. So I think a 3 to 4% increase from the borough is a reasonable, stable amount. If that was the year-to-year increase for the school district, that's kind of the pace of inflation. Like, if our budget goes up by 3-4% a year, I feel like that's reasonable, right? If it jumps 10-15%, then I don't think that's what you expect out of your business, or you need to take a hard look at it. So that's, I just think it's a conversation we need to have with the school board and the school administration, and be specific about this is where the money needs to go, and this is where it needs to not go.
Assembly Person. Oh, Dimitri.
I have a question more for
Yeah.
maybe for deputy mayor in regards to this, in how it's going to affect the mill rate in order to keep the approximate same amount for the tax bill for a property owner, with even though there's an increase in appraised value, but yet the tax bill is same. Where approximately do we need to be with the mill rate for 23? And because this being the biggest 70%, over 70% of the budget, I wanted somebody to speak a little bit on that, please.
Cheyenne, okay. She's figuring down there.
Well, I was looking for my spreadsheet. Through the mayor to Assembly Member Bonoff. Right now, if we do the $5 million reduction. That is a 0.379% mill rate reduction, which would drop the mill rate to, this mill rate to 8.421. I need to pull up another spreadsheet to do some calculations before I could tell you what the mill rate would have to be to get it to the same as what it, to get the taxes to the same as what it is this year. I haven't done that calculation yet.
Yeah, I guess I'm sure everybody would care for just to have an approximate, because this is being, what does $5 million do in this case? Or is it just 2 million? What is a noticeable change when it comes to the bottom? And maybe when you, who put this together, maybe done preliminary, just a number and not exact, but briefly to just kind of talk on that. I just want to know how this affects now, and if it was to attend, if that amount was to double, how much that will affect? Will it affect this to almost 0.8, or there's a different formula used? I'm asking for an explanation.
I think the manager would like to address that, if that's okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so, through the mayor to Mr. Fonoff. So I think what I can speak to is what this amendment would do. So this amendment, by reducing the local education contribution by $5 million, would bring the area-wide mill rate down, as Ms. Heindel described, to 8.421. 8.421 represents a 4.5% increase in taxes from the current year to next. So so basically what that means is the taxes on a single family residential home for the current fiscal year would have been just about $2,854. This would increase it to $2,982. So just over $100 would be that would be the tax impact to your average single family residential home. So the 0.39 or the 379 reduction is off of the 8.8 that was in the manager's proposed budget, not off of the current mill rate, which is 8.901. Does that make sense? So you're walking 8.8 down by 0.379. That's how you get to the 8.421. And that represents, if, like I said, it represents an increase of just over $100 on average per single family residential home. Does that answer your question? I don't think that's exactly what you
briefly, I
asked,
guess
but-
maybe the question would have been, I should have stated a little differently. What would this number need to be if all the other things as proposed stayed same, in order for the bill to stay same at the $2,800? I guess I had getting a couple nods. I think that would, I would like to know. And then you will approximately throw the math and say that number needs to be 6.5 million decrease versus that. Not quite 10, but maybe it's going to be very reasonable. But so that our base is not base, but we're trying to get the number to keep the property tax same, even though the assessed value went up.
Okay, so, yeah, so I guess what you're saying is that whatever property tax they paid on their house last year would be the same amount this year. Is that right? Am I interpreting that right?
That is correct. And that's why I want approximate number thrown at, if it's $2-3 a difference, but then I can explain that to your constituent. But if it's several $100 different, and they say, well, no, we cut the mill rate, that doesn't just say, well, my bill increased by $400. That doesn't necessarily gives me a good explanation. We understand the number. So I guess my question is approximate. Maybe, Stephanie, you have done a little bit of math. I would like to know where this number would approximately land in order to keep the total tax bill pretty much same as the previous year.
And go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so through the mayor, it's a fair question. We just don't have that number readily available. So that's why I would encourage the assembly, if you know you have these questions, let us know. We'll do the work in advance and come prepared, but we don't have that number because we just haven't run that scenario. So and one other point, and the reason in the proposed budget we didn't strive for no new taxes was we recognize that the cost of wages, goods, services, it's increasing. So unless we want to have that conversation about service reductions, it's probably not very sustainable to think that we're going to have the same revenues year to year to support services as costs go up. The reason we proposed what I would say, we put forward a proposed budget that created the opportunity to offset the dramatic increase in property values. But we also, if you recall from the April presentation that we outlined, we were also trying to create capacity to forward fund capital projects. So instead of reducing everything and piling up a ton of maintenance needs and then going out to bond for it, we were trying to chip away at those things over time. And I use the refurbishing of ambulances as an example or as an illustration to describe the tactic or the approach that we're taking is one where we try to sustain that and retain some capacity to do that over time, as opposed to just piling it up until it's a problem and then coming to the assembly and saying, hey, can we go out and sell $50 million in debt? Because then all you do is take that debt service and put it on the area-wide mill rate for 20 years. So I just want to describe like what was that methodology as to why we proposed what we did. But we can get that number. I don't know that we're going to get that number tonight. But we can definitely have it for you by tomorrow if this is continued.
So, so then the other option, sir, would be to move to postpone or lay it on the table, whichever one, until tomorrow night's meeting, both the secondary amendment, the amendment itself. That would be the option, and then you would have the figures, 24 hours from now. So that would be one thing for the assembly to consider if somebody wanted to do that. Or otherwise, if you're ready to vote, we can go ahead and vote on the secondary amendment. So that's where we are.
If I may, to Ms. McKeon, to address, it seems like the two assemblymen that proposes, and based on, we've previously heard their report, 5,000, that's something that they've came up with, and that's pretty much, we just need to agree to this one. I don't have any objections to this one. The secondary amendment that you're saying let's just throw a number there. I think that's not the best way to do it. That's why I was asking a little more detail. I say if, in order to keep that bill the same, I would be on board on that. But that might land up 6.2 million in the cut, in the difference, not the 5 million, but it's not going to be quite 10. So that's why I asked some of those questions, and that's was my way of thinking is.
Okay, so let's see. Assemblyperson Hale, I guess I have, and then Deputy Mayor, and then Assemblyperson McKee. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So kind of to address Mr. Fonov's question, for the last 2 years, well, last year and this year both, we've really done a very good job of kicking the heck out of inflation. Last year we had something like a 13% or something increase in property tax values. This year we have something like 10% increase in property tax values, and we have been very proactive in making sure that our increase comes in well below inflation. And I think that's, we can do that and we can do that, but at some point it's going to catch up to us and it's going to bite us because we haven't been keeping up with inflation. And so I think that it's really appropriate to have this reduction, but to try and get it to where it's going to come out flat from last year, I think with 9-10% inflation this year, I think is taking too big of a bite.
Okay.
As far as the secondary amendment, there have been years where we have been here and this room has filled up with people because we have in code, it says, the manager shall prepare a budget with 6.3 mils of value for the school district. And we've had this room filled up with people asking for that 6.3 mils. And this year and last year, the school district and the school board have worked with us very diligently and not asked for that 6.3 mils. And I think, kudos to them for being able to do the kind of the same thing where we're doing, where we're not we're not letting the entire burden of the inflation pass through onto the taxpayers. And I think the school board or the school district or the board, they have been working very hard to meet us partway on these things, and that's why we don't have a room full of teachers and parents in here, everybody wearing red, saying, give us our full 6.3 mils. So I think we should reward the work of the school board in coming to us with a number lower than our number as provided in code. So.
Deputy Mayor?
I wanted to touch briefly on code as it sits currently and then talk about the relationship side of this thing. So as Tim mentioned, code right now calls for 6.3. Last year, I asked the school board to participate in the construction of Matsu Central, and they did. They give us $10.9 million. That was awesome. It's going to help the community as a whole. It's going to help their budget in the future by owning the building out of pocket, not paying the lease anymore. This year, they could feel our stress and understand. They understood that in order for us to get taxes down well below inflation, that they would have to participate. And they volunteered $5 million. It was a unanimous vote, 7-0. So that will show you that I think we have an amazing school board. And my concern with making this more right now, I have two concerns. One is code still sits at 6.3 until the end of June. And the other is that what I really worry about is that we harm the relationship between us and the school board members. They've got, I think, an awesome board. And I think that there are a lot of validity to Mrs. McKee's concerns, a whole bunch, more than I could ever even fathom, because I didn't spend 25 years in the classroom, right? Just from the outside looking in, being a guy that's obsessed with numbers, it concerns me that only half of the people in the school teach the kids. That's worrisome to me, but I think the appropriate way to go about this would be to leave it at the 5 million for now. You could make this 6 million, 10 million, 20, it doesn't matter what you make it. It's not going to change anything in the building for next August, right? If we want to make fundamental changes, that needs to come from the school board members. And I would advise that any one of us assembly members or any parent at home that's listening to this think, maybe there are some things that could be done. And I would recommend sitting down with school board members, no more than 3, of course, and sharing your concerns with them. The attorney keeps laughing. He's smiling because I keep saying no more than, he's laughing at me because I keep saying no more than 3, but I just don't want anyone to do anything wrong or accidentally break the rules. And so that's why I keep saying that. But again, I think we have a great relationship right now between this body and the school board. Every one of their members, I think, is awesome. And if you have concerns or changes that you would like to see made, I would, again, highly recommend sitting down and visiting with them and being prepared to make that change next year after the 6.3 expires at the end of June this year. Would be the appropriate time. So I'll just leave it at that. That's just kind of where I'm at with it right now. But I do think everybody should have their time to get their feelings out there. This is obviously, I would say, probably the most important thing we do by a mile is our children, right? So that's all I got.
Assemblyperson McKee.
I think the reason that people aren't here showing up en masse is because they really don't know what's going on. They don't see it. People don't come and visit the classroom. They drop off their kids and then they pick them up at the end of the day. They don't see what goes on. And this is all of this money is on the backs of the teachers and on the backs of the kids. I'd love to postpone it just so we could get that figure that you were talking about to see what it brought it down to the, so it kept it the same. Because when you're an employee, if your employee does a good job, you're going to give them a raise, right? The education system is not a good job. So I'm not understanding why we're increasing it at all. I don't care about inflation. It ain't making it down where it needs to be. So I'd at least like to do that to see what we could get to, like Dimitri was saying, to see what that figure would be. We got to make a start somewhere. Because like I said, I wouldn't invest in a company that had the scores, the performance scores that the district has. I wouldn't invest in that company at all. And I know that by state law, we're required to do 2.65. And that's a far cry from 6.3. And I'm glad that thing is sunsetting, because sometimes you just have to get people's attention and say, well, I gave you a whole bunch of money, you wasted it. Now we're gonna cut it down a bit and see how much more careful you can be to deliver the product. The product is education of our students. And when our babies are out there, dead last practically, and dead last or next to dead last, how embarrassing for us as a borough, as a state, to send our kids out there with that. They're not equipped. That's our job, is to equip these kids. We're not doing it. I don't care about the money. If they were doing a good job, like I said, I'd take everything you want. We're not doing it. Somebody needs to get somebody's attention. And I hope that maybe by the way I am speaking tonight, I'm not shy, but I'm louder than usual. No, I cannot do this because it's too important. So can I make, Dimitri, are you going to make the movement or the motion, or what that thing is called? Or you hear it again next night? What? Yeah, to postpone, because I'd like to get that figure before we jump once more into the chasm.
10-minute break. Cheyenne can go.
Okay.
You wanna just take it at ease.
Okay. I just been told that we can take a 10-minute break, and Cheyenne should have that figure. So assembly
Okay.
person hours, you want to speak now or after break, or?
I can just make a couple quick comments before we go into break, just for food for thought. One is that Matsu is not dead last. The state is, but Matsu is about average, room for improvement. But I want to make that distinction. It's not fair to the teachers or the school administrators to lump them in. You wouldn't do that to a football team. They're last or they're right average in the season. So. And then I just want to note too, no matter what we do to the school district, they're losing $6 million from the state by formula. So they're already $6 million down, no matter what we do. We don't know what's going to happen with the BSA and all that, but by formula, they're going to get $6 million less from the state to support schools because our property values went up. So I just want to think about that. And then, I guess during the break, we can get some of those numbers, but I haven't looked at this exactly like Mr. Fonov has. What's the money that's going to go out from us, from the taxpayer? Last year, we held it to 1% increase for average wide taxpayer, and some people's taxes went down with the fire service area and road service area. In a growing borough, I don't think it's reasonable to flat fund borough operations and keep up with the things that we want to keep up with. So I know we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay. So it's, why don't we just come back at 7? That's easy.
Can I make a comment before we go? Because
Oh,
it
sure.
pertains to Ms. Nauer's comments.
Sure.
I'm embarrassed to say, like I said, we are the best of the worst. And there was an article in the Frontiersman with Dr. Trainee talking about we were like something like 26%. I don't care about anybody else. I'm looking at us, and I'm saying we've got a 26% proficient and above. And I honest to God, don't remember if it was math or reading. I had my stuff and it's all at home. That's not good enough. 26%. That means 75% of our kids we're not reaching them. So I don't care about the rest of the state. They can do whatever they like. I'm here. And being best of the worst is not good enough for me and my kids. Just saying.
Okay, so we are in recess until 7 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. And the item that is before you is a secondary amendment on main amendment number 2 on ordinance 23-023. Further discussion? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
So I'm not quite sure where the cards are going to fall on this, but I will say this. If an amendment passes that is over $5 million, I'm going to bring an amendment right behind it and ask that every dollar above 5 million be set aside into a account specific to school district buildings and deferred maintenance. It's something we've talked about in the past. The school board seemed very open to it. I do believe we own the building, so ultimately we should be responsible for everything other than carpet, paint, and FF&Es. I say that's just my personal belief. I don't know exactly how it'd be set up, but that's the things that a school can destroy pretty quickly if the administrator doesn't take good care of it, right? So they should be responsible for that, and really we should be responsible for anything else. So again, I'll just leave it at that. I believe we should stay with the 5 million, but if an amendment passes for more than 5 million, respectfully, I'm letting everybody know I will come behind it with a secondary amendment. Actually, the clerk would tell me that's wrong. It would be a new primary. It'd be a new primary amendment.
It'd be a secondary to the primary.
It'd be a secondary to the primary. Okay, thank you. And I would ask that the money be put into an account specific to their buildings only for deferred maintenance. So that's all I got. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Mike, do we have a report then for the figure? Oh, Cheyenne's got her mic on. Okay.
Through the
So
mayor to the
person-
assembly.
Uh-huh.
To get the mill rate to where it needs to be or where you want it to be so that there is no increase in taxes to the average taxpayer, the mill rate would have to be dropped to 8.061. That is a $9,575,420 drop in tax revenues.
Can you say that amount again?
It would require a cut of $9,757,420. $757,420. That would get the mill rate to 8.061.
Further discussion on the secondary amendment to change the 5 million to 10 million. Any further discussion on that secondary amendment? Any objection? Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I thought there was a secondary amendment on the table for 8 million. I apologize.
Yeah, objection. Okay, so Madam Clerk?
If I can get the members to go ahead and vote.
Can you please explain what we're voting?
You're voting on changing the reduction of 5 million to a reduction of 10 million.
So everybody voted?
Assemblymember McKee,
Okay, so basically what I was asking for.
we're on your secondary
yeah.
amendment to strike 5 million and insert 10 million.
Yep. Thank you.
Did you click your clicker?
I did. I clicked the yes.
Thank you. Now it showed up. It has failed with Assemblymember McKee and Assemblymember Bernier in support. We are back to the primary amendment for 5 million.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment number 2, which is, yes, Assemblyperson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to call the question.
Okay.
So what does that mean? About,
So is there any objection to the calling of the question?
Yes.
Okay, so then we need to vote, right?
Yep.
Yep. So a yes vote would call a question and stop discussion. A no vote would allow discussion to continue on amendment number 2.
If I can get the members in the room to vote on calling for the question on the amendment number 2, please.
To stop debate. Right?
Yes, to stop debate on amendment number 2.
Stop debate is yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has failed with Assembly Member 2, Hale and Yunt in support. Needs 5 votes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Ready, so discussion will continue now on amendment number 2 for ordinance 23-023. Anyone, I see 2 lights on, is that
Oh,
just
I'm sorry.
carryover? Okay. All right. So discussion then on amendment number 2.
Something's wrong with my keys.
Assemblyperson Fanup, go ahead.
Cheyenne, I just wanted to thank you to bring up that calculation. I was honestly, because nobody could answer until you told us number, I was expecting it to be somewhere in between, but not pretty much right at the 9.7 million. So maybe she's a several decade math teacher for nothing. So, but that's a significant number, and I could see how that is gonna make it does not make sense to me. So basically, but if we did, I almost would like to ask Deputy Mayor to continue that discussion specifically on setting aside specific funds that are going to be borough to the school, but it has to be with maintenance, the big things. And if we could have more understanding that, then I believe we'll have a lot better decision making, and so that those money are set aside, they're specifically set aside for that, then would be on board on supporting that.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't
can-
hear a motion. You're just discussing. Did you make a motion, sir? Did he make a motion? No. Okay. I just wanted to be sure
No,
that
just
I
it was discussion.
hadn't heard a motion. Okay, Deputy Mayor, go
No,
ahead.
I think you wanted me to clarify or build on my statement. So all I'm saying is that if there is an amendment to make the amount more than $5 million, I'm going to come behind that with a secondary amendment asking that every dollar above 5 million be set aside for the school district's buildings and deferred maintenance. So, we'll see where the cards fall, but that's what I would do. If there's an amendment that passes for more than 5 million, I will try my best to set the money aside for the school district's buildings. That's all.
Assemblyperson Bernier, go ahead.
I move to amend the amendment by striking the word 5 million and substituting or replacing with 8 million.
8 million, okay. Do you want to go ahead and speak to it, sir?
I believe that they can operate on that amount.
Okay. Okay, so now we have a secondary amendment again on the floor to change the 5 million to 8 million. Discussion on that secondary amendment. Assemblyperson Hay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just oppose this for the same reasons that I stated before. Money doesn't flow downhill, but we all know what does flow downhill. So I would just say, you can't fix it by throwing more money at it, but you're certainly not going to fix it by taking more money away. So.
Okay, further discussion on the secondary amendment. Go ahead, and then I'll get.
I like
ahead.
the idea that Mr. Yunt would come along behind and put that money in a specific place to meet a specific need, which would enhance the chances of things lasting longer by not having this deferred maintenance. So, I mean, if you're going to do something with the money that's constructive, you can't give it to teachers, at least give it to the buildings so that things will, I would vote for that amendment, Mr. Berniers.
Okay. Assemblyperson Hours.
I just have the same objection. We're just, the issue we're having is where the money is going, and that's a school board decision. And I look at this 5 million, and that gets us to a average increase for the property taxpayer in the borough, which we held them to 1% last year, and some people went down. So we were able to fund all borough operations we're with the 5 million cut, we're holding it to 4.5%. And that does not include the reductions that are happening in many of the fire service and road service areas. So when I look at our budget and what we're trying to do with it, I think that's a very fiscally conservative amount. And I just, what Mr. Yunt said, I shouldn't think we need to think about, which is our relationship with the school district and just
We're Uncle Dad.
shouting at them that I get the frustration, but I want to shout too about things, but I think the way we succeed is by being specific and getting the school district to change. And you got to have the community behind you on that too. Everybody has their own individual opinion about where the dollar should flow in the school district. But you go there and you find out it's not always equally thought of. So just for all the reasons that I opposed increasing to 10 million, I'm going to oppose increasing to 8 million. I think 5 million is a good start, and it keeps a good relationship with the school district, and it provides our ability to really keep things reasonable for our taxpayers.
Further discussion on the secondary amendment?
Is there any way to amend the amendment so that if it is in an 8 million, but then right away the 3 million that is set aside?
It can come afterwards. Go ahead.
The secondary amendment is as far as you can amend. So right now, that's as far as you can go.
So we would need to do a completely separate amendment if we wanted to cut additional 3 million with the proposition of having it.
You cannot make another secondary amendment. You have to vote this secondary amendment either up or down. If it would pass, then you could make a secondary amendment saying that 3 million would be done, what the deputy mayor was talking about. But you cannot do that at this time, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the secondary amendment? Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Throw it back at you. So what you're saying is that we would first have to vote on Mr. Bernier's additional 3 million. And once whatever happens on account of that, then we would then have another amendment that Mr. Fonov might put forth that would set aside that 3 million for a specific purpose of the maintenance. Okay, thanks.
If that's my understanding, yeah. Thank you for explaining. Yeah, it was Rob was explained that, Mr. Young.
That would be up to the deputy mayor if he wanted to make it at that time, or anybody could make that amendment at that time.
Anybody could make it at that time. We cannot move beyond a secondary amendment, and so I think it's best to table any discussion of that until after this gets voted up or down.
Further discussion on the secondary amendment to change the 5 million to 8 million? I do have an objection. So, Madam Clerk?
If I can get everybody to vote, please.
Please explain the vote again.
You're striking 5 million and inserting 8. You're voting yes or no on the 8 million.
Okay, thank you.
It has failed with Assemblymember Fonoff, McKee, and Bernier in support.
Okay, so now we're back to amendment number 2 on ordinance 23-023. Discussion on that amendment. Assemblyperson Hale.
I would like
go
to
ahead.
call the question.
Okay, so now, is there objection to calling the question? Okay, there's objection to calling the question. So you need to vote yes if you want to stop debate and no if you do not want to stop debate on amendment number 2 for ordinance 23-023.
Madam Clerk, or Madam Mayor, Madam Clerk. Madam Mayor,
You want to change seats?
no. It had failed with Assemblymember 2, Hale, Nowers, and Yunt in support.
Okay. So further discussion then.
It takes 5 votes for calling the question.
Okay, Assemblyperson Renier, go
I'd-
ahead, discussion.
I'd like to amend this motion by striking the word 5 million and adding the word 7 million.
Okay. You want to go ahead and speak to it, sir?
Let's do this.
Okay. Discussion regarding changing, regarding this secondary amendment to change the 5 to 7. Assemblyperson Hale.
I would like to call the question.
Is there objection to calling the question? I don't hear any objection to calling the question, so the question's been called. The vote before you is to change the 5 million to 7 million.
Madam Mayor, that has passed was Assembly Member 2.
We're voting on calling the question.
No, there was no.
There was no
Then I
objection.
voted incorrectly, and I apologize for that.
Okay, all right. So the motion before you now is to change the 7 million, or change the 5 million to the 7 million,
May-
right?
okay.
Are you telling me no? I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? I thought you said no.
No.
And so, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to Brenda.
Oh.
Sorry. Madam Mayor, that has failed with Assembly Member Fonoff, McKee, and Bernier in support.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
All right, so it's very clear that we do not have 5 people willing to call a question. So I think we should have a short amount of more discussion and debate. I think it's appropriate that we leave it at the 5 million and that we individually, as assembly members, go and work with the school district and the school board if we would like to see any fundamental changes made to how they do business. In the meantime, I think it's best to leave it at the 5 million. So we're not calling the question. That's been proven a couple times now. So that's all I got.
Okay. Assemblyperson Bernier, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to amend the motion by striking the word 5 million and adding the word 6 million.
Okay. So objection to the secondary amendment to change. Okay, we do have objection. Discussion on that change. Okay, is everybody ready to vote then? So yes vote would change the 5 to 6.
Can I ask a question before we vote? Would Deputy Mayor, you take that extra $1 million and stick it in the maintenance thing?
You could, anybody could make that motion. If it passes.
Oh, okay.
Anybody.
Yeah.
You could.
Okay, got it. Mhm.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, he's welcome to answer it if he wants to, but that motion is open to anybody on the
Okay.
assembly.
Thanks.
Okay.
You can go ahead and vote on the, oh, thank you. Madam Mayor, it has failed with Assembly Member Fonoff, McKee, and Bernier in support.
Okay, so we're back to amendment number 2 on ordinance 23-023 with the figure 5 million in it. Discussion on that amendment. Is there objection to that amendment passing? Don't see any objection, so amendment number 2 has passed. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Assembly Member 2 is next.
Okay. Assemblyperson 2, go ahead, sir. Your amendment number 3.
I move to amend the area-wide fund and capital projects with any other conforming changes as follows. Area-wide non-departmental transfer to 446.700 by increasing the appropriation in the amount of 20,000 and capital projects by inserting a grant for the Big Lake Lions Club in the amount of $20,000.
Okay, would you like to speak to it, sir?
Sure. The Big Lake Lions Club is a central place that everybody in the Big Lake area community goes to. Also, they have area-wide events too, like the gun shows, sporting events, hockey games, just all this kind of stuff. They give, and they're a nonprofit Lions Club, and I think it'd be great that we support them with this money.
Okay. Discussion. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I am probably the biggest fan in the world of this organization, specifically the one in Big Lake. During 2020, when everybody was trying to shut down the world, they kept their doors open and didn't skip a beat. We had multiple wrestling tournaments out there with, I'd say, 2,000 people in that arena. Parking lots full, motorhomes there, everybody from Fairbanks and Soldotna coming. Not tell you how appreciative all of those families were and the kids. They did not even skip a beat. It was pretty awesome. They do operate at a loss that's covered by the Lions Club. I know we have other community buildings in the Matsu Borough that also operate at a loss, but it's to the taxpayers. So I'm great job, Moki. I think this is well deserved. I can tell you, as somebody that's been to that arena probably 5 or 6 times now, I'd never seen a wrestling tournament there ever before COVID. And now they're on the map. There's annual ones there now because our community wants to show the appreciation back to them. And there will be tournaments there forever. I think it's pretty awesome. So I don't know if anybody will support me on this, but I heard that it costs the Lions Club about $40,000 a year to operate this. And so I'm going to make an amendment to out of their own pocket above what they collect in revenue from the hockey organizations. It's a lot of hockey there. And then like Moki said, there's other community events there too, but I'm going to make an amendment to strike 20,000 and insert 40,000. So I might not get any support, but I hope everybody does. So thanks.
Okay. There's a secondary amendment before you to change the amount from 20,000 to 40,000. Discussion on that secondary amendment. Assemblyperson Hours.
Can we just clarify that this is coming from, this won't affect the mill rate? That it's coming from unassigned fund balance or projected unassigned fund balance?
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Nowers, yes, the amendment as written is to take it from unassigned fund balance.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the secondary amendment. Yes.
So maybe you've already said maybe you've already answered it, but at 20,000, it wouldn't affect the mill rate. Will it at 40? Is that what?
No.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember McKee, no, it will not affect the mill rate because it is coming from fund balance.
Fund balance. Okay, great. That's what.
Okay. Is there any objection to the secondary amendment? Seeing none, then the secondary amendment has been adopted. Before you now is amendment number 3 with the figure 40,000 rather than 20,000. Discussion regarding amendment number 3. Is there any objection to amendment number 3? Seeing and hearing none, then amendment number 3 has passed. Okay, Assemblyperson Hale, I guess your amendment number 4, sir.
I believe so. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to amend the area-wide fund and capital projects and make any other conforming changes to the budget as follows. The area-wide fund, non-departmental, transfer to 446.700 by increasing the appropriation amount by $50,000, and capital projects by adding Bodenberg compound in the amount of $50,000. I'd like to speak to it if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So this also is coming out of fund balance. It will not affect the mill rate. The Bodenberg compound is a project that the community council out in Butte has been working hard on for the last 4 years, since before I was on the assembly. And we're at a position right now where we are about to receive clerk's deed for the property. It's been seized in foreclosure. And while I don't have any particular plans for how this money would be spent, I would like to set it aside now during budget time so that it's available if the community council comes up with some ideas about how to improve the property and make some type of community something there, something for the community by the community. And like I said, it doesn't affect the mill rate. It comes right out of projected fund balance.
Further discussion? Yeah, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I appreciate this amendment. I think everybody in the area will as well. My only request is that it be used, like you said, for a community property. And so I trust our staff to do that. They're amazing, and I know they'll make that happen if that's the will of the body tonight. But I just want to put that out there that whatever gets done there, I think will be amazing. I just hope that it's everybody in the community is allowed to use it.
Further discussion? Assemblyperson Nowers?
It's a question. So is the intent to eventually transfer this over to the community council or community group so the borough is not holding title?
So there's been a lot of options discussed. That is one of the options, to transfer it either to the community council or to a nonprofit of some type. Yeah, another option is for the borough to continue to maintain ownership of it and have a management agreement with the community council. For instance, that's how the Willow area community organization, they're building out there. The borough actually owns the property, but Waco has a management agreement with them to operate it. So there's a whole lot of different options and different ways of doing this. But to reassure Mr. Yunt, it as far as the public purpose, as soon as we have clerk's deed, I will be bringing forth an ordinance to dedicate the property to a public purpose. And so that will, you folks will be seeing that hopefully end of June. So
Further discussion on amendment number 4? Any objections to amendment number 4? Hearing no objections, amendment number 4 has been adopted. Assemblyperson Hale, amendment number 5.
thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to amend the area-wide fund and capital projects grants and make any other conforming changes to the budget as follows. Area-wide fund, non-departmental, transfer to 446.700 by increasing the appropriation in the amount of $20,000. And capital projects grants, striking $150,000 for ski talk ski area development and inserting $170,000 in its place for an increase of $20,000. And this, again, is it does not affect the mill rate coming out of fund balance. Some folks from Ski Talk called just the other day and they said, hey, we see that you're supporting us again this year, and that's great, but we need to do I think it's an economic impact study as in preparation for applying for some grants for their expansion up the mountain. Some of the grant requirements, some of these grants that they're applying for require them to have gone through this step, and this money would fund that economic impact study.
Further discussion on amendment number 5? Assemblyperson Nowers?
So is this are we funding the full cost of the economic study, or is this like they're additionally have funds that are going into this?
I don't know the answer to that question. They called me and asked me for $20,000.
Further discussion on amendment number 5? Any objection to amendment number 5? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
You have an objection, or you just?
I object. Yeah.
Okay, so the question before you is the approval for amendment number 5.
Members in the room could go ahead and vote on amendment number 5, please.
And we're voting to kill it or to adopt it?
Approve it.
Approve it.
Oh, okay.
Madam Mayor, it's passed with Assemblymember Fanoff, McKee, and Bernier opposed.
Okay. Assemblyperson Nowers, amendment number 6.
Yeah, I want to move to amend something to increase funding for elections for 50,000, but I'd like to take this also out of unassigned fund balance. So I think I need to say I move to amend the area-wide fund and capital projects / grants and make any other conforming changes to the budget.
Through the mayor to assembly member hours. No, you don't need to say that.
Okay.
As it's written, just add that it's coming out of
Unassigned fund balance. Okay. Move to amend the area-wide fund elections by increasing 4.34000 by 50,000 by taking that 50,000 from unassigned fund balance. And I think there's a statement here, but the clerk asked me to bring this so we can have laptops and paper counters at the elections offices to just count the number of ballots that are counted. They still would be hand counted, and there still would be, all that it would do is count the number of ballots, number of papers. So you know you got 1,000 ballots or 1,500 ballots, and it would save the elections officials sometimes and provide a second count. So you make sure they got the right count.
Further discussion, Assemblyperson Hale, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is that like the bill counter that we were talking about, where it just tells you how many $100 bills you got. So this is good.
Madam Clerk, did you want to say so? I mean, I saw your hand move there.
I just wanted to
didn't
say
know.
that we didn't realize at the time at the budget, we would have put this in the budget. We did not realize the thing would not work without a laptop.
Further discussion.
So is
Yep.
Go ahead, sir.
it's 50,000?
Assemblymember Bernier, we have 40 precincts. We have to buy one for all 40 precincts.
Yeah,
Bless-
I hear you there.
I don't think the puppy agreed.
Amen.
You're probably going to have to put, anybody that wants a copy of this minutes, you're probably going to have to put something on the minutes so that they'll know what just happened. Anyway, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I asked this question earlier today, but I want to put it on the record. I just want to confirm that these laptops will not be hooked up to the internet.
That is correct, Assemblymember Young. They're just there so the election officials closing the ballot accountability report and the hand counters have a secondary and know how many ballots that came out of that box that night.
Thank you.
Assemblyperson Vaughnoff, go ahead.
So just for that, does the borough have laptops or do we have to buy $1,000 laptops
what I'm asking.
just to have that machine and separately? I mean, it looks like these laptops don't even have to have Wi-Fi. I don't think there's laptops without Wi-Fi, but I'm saying my question is, how much extra laptops we have in the borough, and if it's doing such a basic thing, do they need to be $1,000 laptops?
To Assemblymember Fanoff, that is the quote I got from IT. However, I will tell you that I will buy the cheapest laptop I can, as long as that the printer will count the number of papers that go through the machine.
I believe $500 for a basic laptop would be there. So I would propose that number amendment to secondary amendment to $25,000. So we'd still have the laptops, but there will just be more basic ones because it sounds like they're not doing very complicated stuff.
Okay, secondary amendment before you to change the 50,000 to 25,000. I don't know which one of you were first down there. Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, I would, excuse me, just say, I got a really amazing laptop for $538 and it just about makes your coffee while you're fooling around with it. So, I mean, I think we need to bring it down to that.
Assemblyperson Hale, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that since this doesn't affect the mill rate, the purchasing procedures that we go through, we can guarantee a really good price for these things. But what I would hate to see is the clerk gets through, all the purchasing procedures and finds out that it's going to be 32,000 or whatever. Whatever money's left over of this 50,000 will be rolled back into the operating fund next year. Whether it's 10,000, 18,000, 25,000. Maybe we can get them for 25,000. But I would be very careful lowering that down to where, if we do come in over it, the clerk is going to have to come back to us and say, hey, you need to find another, $8,000 or something. So that's all.
Okay, further discussion. Assemblyperson Nowers, go
Just
ahead.
want to ask the clerk about the flip side of that. So if you get through this and we lowered it to 25,000 and you need 30,000 or 40,000, you would have to come back to us for that additional funding?
Go ahead. Madam Clerk.
To Assemblymember Nowers, yes, I would.
So it might just slow your process down a little bit.
That is correct. However, keep in mind too that we will start doing this as soon as the budget's adopted in July. So hopefully we would know sooner rather than later.
Further
Okay,
discussion.
I appreciate the effort to lower to 25. I do feel like the clerk is going to find us the best deal. I don't think we're saying buy us $1,000 computer if she can find one for 500. So I think I would just stick with the 50 and then, but you'll keep us apprised of what it cost and we'll know that funding exists.
I sure can.
Further discussion on, yes, Assemblyperson McKee.
I would also like to say that I absolutely trust Lonnie's expertise in this, and if she can get a better price, she will. And then if it'll just get rolled back in, then we haven't lost anything. So I would leave it where it is.
Further discussion on the secondary amendment. Okay, is there objection to the second? There is objection to the secondary amendment. So, Madam Clerk.
If I can get the members in the room to vote on the secondary amendment, please. Madam Mayor, it has failed with Assemblymember Fonoff and Bernier in support.
Okay, so we're back to amendment number 6 in the amount of 50,000. Further discussion on that amendment number 6. Is there any objection to amendment number 6? Seeing and hearing none, amendment number 6 is adopted. Madam Clerk, do we have more amendments? That's all. we have.
Madam Mayor, that is all in the packet tonight. Some assembly members may have more amendments they would like to make.
Okay, so we're still under discussion and amendments that can come forth. Assemblyperson Bonoff, go ahead, sir.
Okay, Lonnie helped me prepare this right before. Basically, we in the hearing that we had in Menard, we had a program that talked about disc golf and how it benefits the community. And basically, I'm proposing Amendment 7, and all it is there is for basket weave. I've got an email. It's pretty much what they asked for is equals to right around $10,000, and it's I can read the whole thing, or but $10,000 out of the area-wide fund, so it's not increasing mill rate or anything like that, of a total of $10,000.
Okay, so amendment number 7 before you is to purchase the disc golf baskets in the amount of $10,000. Is that correct, sir? Is that your amendment?
That is correct.
Okay. Discussion on that amendment, which amendment number 7, I believe. Yes. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor to the clerk or to Ms. Hindo. So do we want to clarify that that's coming out of projected fund balance as well?
You did say that.
Okay.
He said that.
My bad.
I'm sorry, I just didn't repeat it.
I was listening to what you repeated. I didn't hear.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I should have repeated it more fully. Yes. Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of the folks that were presenting the other night, and I'm all for the enthusiasm. I love the outdoor idea and the family thing, but this is a fairly specialized group, kind of a small group of people. And I told them, I said, have a bake sale or something like that. And you know what? Instead of having all these fancy receptacle things, I put a couple of garbage cans out there. I just thought that there's a cheaper way to do this, and maybe we ought to see if this is going to be a flash in the pan kind of thing. Maybe if those people really want it, and I support them 100%, show us that you're going somewhere with this, Because I'm just not sure that, I don't even want to use the word handout, but I just don't think at this point in the development of that sport that it requires the taxpayers to support it. Just saying.
Okay, Assemblyperson Hale, discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I support Mr. Fonov with this. Alcantara's got a great facility. It's been a great facility there for a number of years. They have put a lot of work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, money into it, the whole 9 yards. And it is on borough property. It's used by lots and lots of folks. It's the closest disc golf course for anyone who lives on this side of the Matanuska River. If you live on the other side of the Matanuska River, Peters Creek is a little bit closer. But if you live on this side of the Matanuska, Alcantara is the place you go. And these folks have put a lot of work into this into this facility over the years, and a lot of their own money. They've had their bake sales. They've done those kind of things. This is the first time they've ever come and, as far as I know, ever come and ask the borough for money. And I support Mr. Fonov. It's a great family activity outdoors on a school ground.
Further discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Nowers, go ahead.
I think we're going to split along disc golf players and non-disc golf players, and Alex Strawn is probably never going to forgive me for this, but I am a complete miser, and I just I want to help these people, but I also feel like groups that come to us should come with like some skin in the game on this. And so I just like it was clear there was a lot of enthusiasm, and the borough was the first place she turned, and I suggested, the community councils have revenue sharing. Palmer Community Foundation has money. Maybe I thought it'd be really cool if the welding students would do it. So I would be able to, I just like, I can't, if they had come to us and said, we raised 5,000 and we're looking, just to get the last little bit, I kind of feel the same as Miss McKee. Like, even though this isn't changing the mill rate, it's not free money. It's still money that came from the taxpayers. It's just what we have left over. So I just would appreciate these guys going back and maybe looking if we could do them locally. Maybe they can't be done locally, but if they can't, like, look to some of these other groups and then come to us for that last chunk of funding. And I would be happy to support them if there's other people who are contributing to this too.
Further discussion? Yeah.
Yes, and just very briefly,
Oh,
when I was talking to these, is it me?
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't see your light down
Oh, I
there.
beg your pardon, because I
Go ahead.
can't. Yeah. What I was suggesting to them is maybe, if it had a little more benefit to the community at large, like if you went to one of the welding programs at the schools and gave them the specs. I mean, I don't know if they could do this because I don't know anything about that. My kid's a welder, but that's as much as I know about welding. Where they could maybe could be manufactured locally with the specs that their national organization could give them. What a blessing that would be to, I don't know, Career Tech, where they could make something like that, or some small welding business where they could develop a little more product. I just think I would totally support that. But I think they got to, exhaust some of the other options like that first for me to get to vote for that.
Okay, Assemblyperson Fonoff, go ahead.
I actually have the price quote from them, Ms. McKee. In that price, it will include 18 baskets plus the shipping freight of $1,800. The per basket price turns out to be about $425. If you were to try to go get one locally made and it wouldn't be certified to the sports standard, it'd probably run you over $1,000 each, just with how expensive the welding is alone. So we definitely, this is a fairly reasonable number. And even though you might think that it has a very narrow people that are involved, but we have a lot of other, sports activities and things like that we already funding and we already have, but this is just improvements for what's already there. And they're even taking the old baskets that are half broken, things like that. They're gonna at their own kind of cost take them to repair them and use them as they expand the field. So this is just something that it'll improve what they already have. It'll replace their newer ones, and then the old ones are not being they're still going to continue that because there's other places where they can use them. So I think that price number is really reasonable. And I mean, if we're $25,000 on the laptop, seemed like almost like not a not a concession. $10,000 here is a reasonable number, including all the freight and everything.
Further discussion, Deputy Mayor?
I just wanted to speak a little bit to some of the details with this sport. So I've only played it a few times here in town and then down on the Kenai Peninsula, but there is actually a professional league now, and there are some of these players that are getting endorsements and sponsorships and stuff. It's pretty cool. I know the participation levels skyrocketed during COVID because this is something you could do outside and have social distancing. And this is probably one of the only sports where a 7-year-old child could play against their parents or an adult, if that makes sense, and actually kind of do it on a fair playing level. I could actually see this becoming a school district sport, a co-ed sport. I don't think we have enough co-ed sports. I think we need more of them personally, and I will support this. I do think it's a good value. It gets families out of the house, gives them something to do. And as Mr. Hill mentioned earlier, let's not forget this is on a borough property. So I'm going to support it. Like I said, I think there's a lot of potential for this sport to continue to grow in our community. And it's, anything that we're doing to get kids and families out of the house into the great outdoors, I think is a good thing. So
Further discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess when we talk about skin in the game, I just would like to point out that every single one of these holes on the course has a tee box that is approximately 4 foot by 8 foot concrete slab. And as far as I know, and Alex can correct me if I'm wrong, but the disc golf people built and paid for the concrete and the lumber and everything for every single one of these tee boxes, which is, somewhat more considerable of an expense than 18 steel baskets with chains attached, and a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat equity in this course, and I think that they came to us for the very first time, and I think we ought to support them. So,
Further discussion on amendment number 7. Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're probably ready to vote.
If I can
Sounds
get-
like we have a rejection.
Yeah, we did. If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote. Madam Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember McKee and Nowers opposed.
Okay. Madam Clerk, are there further amendments that you have? You do not
I
have
do
any?
not have.
Okay. Any further amendments to come from the assembly table?
Assemblymember Yount.
Oh, okay, sorry. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
this will be coming out of capital projects. RSA equipment is the account name, budget page 507. And I would like to decrease the budget by $315,000, which was to be used to purchase a vac truck. The vac truck was to be purchased with a 70-30 split. The RSA paying 70% and Talkeetna Water and Sewer paying 30%. My feelings on this is that we have RSA contractors to do this work for a reason. And these are very, very, very difficult pieces of equipment to operate and maintain. And if Talkeetna Water and Sewer wants one that bad, they should buy one. So I'll leave it at that.
Further discussion on amendment number 8. Deputy Mayor, not Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. Just got a promotion. Or demotion, depending on wherever you are.
Right? Yeah.
Assemblyperson Hale.
I just would be curious as to what the assembly member for the Talkeetna area, what their thoughts are on this.
Go ahead, sir.
I believe the contractor should be responsible for that.
Okay,
If I could just ask,
I'm sorry.
if I could ask a question.
Oh, sure.
I just want to clarify, this is on page 507 and you said the vac truck, right? Thank you.
Further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Assemblyperson Hours, go ahead.
So your objection, if I understand it right, is that some of the funding is coming out of the road service area. And you think it should come out of the sewer and water if they want this back truck. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's half my objection. The other half is that I just don't think that the Matsu Borough can be competing with private sector. We have them available to do this work. That's our RSA contractors. We can call them out to do this and pay them a fair wage for it, or we can, Talkeetna Water and Sewer could go out and get a service agreement with people who are not one of our RSA contractors. So obviously, I would recommend they do whoever's going to give them the best deal. But these services are available without buying our own truck. But yeah, I don't think the RSAs should participate in it at all if it is purchased. And then I also will tell you, these are very expensive pieces of equipment to maintain. And I think it'll be cheaper to just hire someone to do the work every once in a while than it is going to be to even maintain this. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on amendment number 8. Is there any objection to amendment number 8? Okay, I guess not. So amendment number 8 has been adopted. Any further amendment? Yes, Assemblyperson Nowers.
I do have one amendment, and I'd like some help with it. I'd like to take our projected unassigned fund balance, which started at almost 1.5 million and is now at some level, but I'd like to bring that down to 1 million, even whatever the amount is required to do that, and take that money and apply it to lowering the mill rate. And my thinking on this again is, if I can speak to it, is I'd like to, this unassigned fund balance is projected. It's, like I said, not free money. I think $1 million is a fair amount to have in there for some of the things that may come up, such as the Arctic Winter Games and some other projects. But I think just for a small additional amount of property tax relief, and then it just makes us a little tighter as an assembly for, when people come to us, we take a hard look at what they're asking for and whether we want to put taxpayer dollars towards it. So it just reduced that to 1 million, still leave a healthy amount in it and give a little bit of tax relief.
And do you have a figure what the new mill levy is? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and state that for the record? You turned off your mic.
Thank you. I move to amend as follows and make any other conforming changes to the budget in the area-wide fund non-departmental tab B. The area-wide fund mill rate by reducing it by 0.025 mils. This will result in a $329,903 reduction to area-wide unassigned fund balance, leaving a balance of 1 million.
And so later on, we're going to have to say, I heard the reduction, but I didn't hear the end figure for the mill rate.
I don't know if we need the mill rate, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I just see here later, it says I moved to set the mill rate
Yeah.
at something,
Yeah,
so
and
it's somebody
yes.
who's going to have it. something.
Correct.
Okay.
Cheyenne or Ms. Heindel will give us those numbers. We
Oh,
got Assembly
okay.
Member Hill.
Okay, so we don't need it now.
No.
Okay. Assemblyperson Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say Assemblymember Nowers beat me to it, and I support it.
Okay. Further discussion on amendment number 9. Yes, Assemblyperson
In
Fauna, go
the
ahead.
past, if it didn't use all that money, does it just rolls, or can you explain the process how it is? Or someone can explain that, please? Mr. Brown or?
Yes.
Go
So
ahead.
through the mayor to Mr. Fawnoff. So we built in a projected fund balance into the budget specifically to create a buffer for operations where maybe we over projected on revenues that we would collect through tobacco sales, bed tax, something like that. So we created a little bit of buffer just to be safe. We had $500,000 set aside for the assembly if you see fit in the need of a contingency for the Arctic Winter Games. That was another $500,000. And then we left $500,000 in there for the assembly to fund projects that you just funded with amendments 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 without affecting the mill rate. So then you could bring forward projects that you want to fund, but you don't have to adjust the mill rate up every time you do that. So what Ms. Nowers is essentially doing is taking the 500,000 that was set aside for that purpose, that's been reduced by about $170,000 with those 5 amendments I just described. And then this gets it down to $1 million flat, which gives us that $500,000 buffer, and then $500,000 as a contingency for the Arctic Winter Games, should the assembly see fit to appropriate that in the future. If that $1 million doesn't get used, it just rolls over into fund balance. So we don't lose it. It could be for a future purpose, particularly if that money isn't appropriated or needed this coming fiscal year. Did I miss anything, Cheyenne?
Okay. Further discussion on amendment number 9.
Just
Yes, go ahead,
clarification.
sir.
So if you took out the $500,000 for the Arctic Winter Games in the past couple years, what was that amount? And out of it, how much was used and how much was left over for, let's say, the past 2 to 3 years? Just a bulk number.
Through the mayor to Mr. Fonoff, we haven't set any fund balance aside for the Arctic Winter Games in the past. This is the only time.
No, I said if you take out that number, the remaining amount, has that always been that consistent number? And how much of it have we used and how much we have had remaining in the past couple of years?
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Fonoff, we have budgeted 1.4 million. Last year, fiscal year 22, I do not have the audited fund balance, but we dipped into that unassigned fund balance to the tune of $4 million because of the unrealized investment losses. Prior to that, we keep a fund balance of about $1 million of unassigned fund balance. That's where we try to keep it. That's
Okay. Further discussion on amendment number 9. Is there any objection to amendment number 9? Okay, amendment number 9 then has been adopted. Further amendments from the assembly. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Do we want to take a 10-minute break so that Cheyenne can do some calculations for us, or do we want to move to postpone until tomorrow evening? Okay, then I'm getting some bad hand signals here, so I would
Okay.
go ahead.
Mr. Attorney.
Yep.
Okay, since you're take a 10-minute break, sounds like you might get the mill rates and finish up the budget tonight. I want to remind everybody that when you've passed the budget, all these amendments merge. What does that mean? It means if you pass the budget tonight, you cannot reconsider and the mayor cannot veto individual amendments. So while you're taking a little break, if anybody has reconsiderations or vetoes as to the specific amendments themselves, of course, the mayor has line item veto, so that's a different story for the next couple of weeks. But, our code, I just
next week.
started to point this out because it gets confusing because the code says you can reconsider up till tomorrow. That would be on the entire budget itself, but not individual amendments. Same thing with the mayor's veto. The mayor could veto, strike, or reduce appropriation items, but not as to the individual amendments that were made tonight. So I just want to point that out before you confirm everything in case anybody has any ideas.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Now I remember why Jesse never wanted to adopt the first night. But I think these were all pretty clear and easy to understand amendments. So whatever the will of the body wants is what we should do. I'm fine either way.
So should I ask if there's any objection to go ahead and passing the budget tonight? I don't see any, and Cheyenne has the figure. Okay,
So now we're on the first page, Madam Mayor.
yeah, right there, that one that I wanted before. I was just jumping ahead there. Deputy Mayor, you have a motion? If I can have the assembly come back to order, please. Deputy Mayor?
And I start down here. Yeah. I move to set the mill rate at 8.396 area wide and 0.387 non-area wide.
Okay. Assembly
Again,
pers- oh, I'm sorry.
I move to set the mill rates at 8.396 area wide and 0.387 non-area wide.
Assemblyperson Fanoff, did you have a
I
question?
no, I wanted the 10-minute break that we were talking. I was going to work with another assemblyman as on the amendment. So you're saying if right now we move forward, with no more amendments can be made.
Right, if this motion passes that the deputy mayor made, if that motion passes, then there will be no more amendments. Oh, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that because sometimes during the year you come up with different things like you were talking about that maybe future time for a request from Arctic Winter Games or something like that, but no amendments like what you've made tonight.
I was going to ask if we could take the 10-minute break to discuss some stuff and then after that vote on what he's about
Well,
to.
if you're going to discuss stuff, I would prefer you do it in a public meeting. So if you have an amendment that you want to propose.
Madam Mayor, I
Mhm.
think he wanted to discuss, if I can clarify, he
Okay.
wanted to discuss an amendment with one other assembly member. I don't believe he was going to do
Okay.
it with a quorum of the body.
Okay, okay. So that's what you want is okay, so it is, should we come back at 15 after 8? Will I give you time, sir? Okay, all right, so we will take a recess until 8:15.
So if
My motion to adopt the mill rate.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objection to him pulling his motion to adopt a mill levy at this time? Okay, Assemblyperson Fonoff, you have an amendment you'd like to bring forward?
Yes, I move to increase the solid waste enterprise fund vehicle removal division by $50,000 for a program to reimburse people for junk vehicle remove. And if I may speak briefly.
Yes, go ahead and speak to it, sir.
Basically, wanted to incentivize people of removing the junk vehicles, and a lot of times, pretty much every time, there's a cost associated with that. And basically, we want to public to know that we will have a program and criteria set in place where people will be able, after they've completed, so not give them money up front, but after they complete it and they brought the receipt for 170, we'll probably have a limit, and Mr. Brown will speak on a little more details on that. We'll have a very specific criteria for this, but basically it will, people will know that they will be able to get reimbursement up to a certain amount for a junk vehicle removal.
Okay, and this is amendment number 10. So, and then, did you want to speak to it, sir?
Yeah, so through the mayor to the assembly. So what Mr. Fonoff is proposing is to set the money aside, appropriate it, essentially like what Mr. Hale did with the Bodenberg compound. So the money will be appropriated in the budget. I will work with staff and the sponsor to come up with the criteria for how we would actually execute it, kind of the how. And then we'll bring that and communicate that back to the assembly before we move forward with execution.
Further discussion on amendment number 10, Deputy Mayor.
I have one question, and it's for the manager. So in our RSAs, quite often our contractors will call the borough and say, hey, I cannot keep 2 lanes open. There's a car that's been abandoned on the road. The RSA then in turn has to go and remove that and pay to remove it. Could we use this fund for that so that the RSAs don't have to?
Through the mayor to Mr. Young, we already have a program to do that. What I think Mr. Fonoff, and if I misspeak, sir, correct me, is proposing is we're talking about people removing private vehicles. We're not talking about out of public right away. We already have a program in solid waste division to pull vehicles from within public right away. And when I say public right away, I mean borough right away, not state right away, just to be clear. So we already have provisions for doing that. So I'm not suggesting that we would utilize this funding for that purpose. We would be utilizing it as Mr. Fonoff described.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Further discussion on amendment number 10. Yes, Assemblyperson Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we could spend 50 grand in the Butte in about 2 days, but I want to commend the maker for this motion. It's a fantastic idea.
Further discussion on amendment number 10. Go ahead, sir.
If somebody wants to add the additional amendment or increase that, but we would have criteria. So one person there would be a limit or a cap associated. So, and it will be on first come, first serve. So the uncertain date in the spring or whatever it is that, and people will, the date will have to match, they can't bring it from the way before, but something, a very common sense approach, but really easy to reimburse. And I'm trying to motivate people that have a couple cars that need to get rid of, but they don't have a couple extra $100. And that will be I believe, a win-win situation.
Further discussion on amendment, yes, Assemblyperson 2, go ahead.
I'd like to thank the maker for this too. I think this will go a long way in cleaning up our borough with all these junk cars laying around. So good job.
Okay. Further discussion?
Assemblymember Young.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to say thank you as well. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, this is a great idea. The groundwork will be laid after the first 50 grand spent. I don't think we need to make it any larger tonight, but if it goes fast and the program's working well, we do have a slush fund with some money in it too that we could use in the future. So I would say this is an appropriate amount right now, and I'd suggest leaving it at that.
Okay.
Great job.
I'm sorry, Assemblyperson Nowers.
Just so I understand, so this would, if somebody had a junk vehicle on their property and just was short of money to bring it to the landfill, this would allow them to bring it and it would compensate them for the otherwise disposal fee? Is that what the thinking is on this?
Logistics mostly to reimburse for the tow fee. because that regardless, because there may be places that will take the car for free for the scrap metal or whatever, but the tow was the one that, and I will, if we can figure out an average tow fee, and let's say if we're gonna say $150, if we'll divide that at $150, that will $50,000, $150, it'll be about 333 vehicles in the valley that will go and get rid of, maybe less than 150. If it's $75, we'll create ideas and criteria where people will be and I, not everybody going to use it, but those that are going to use it, I believe it's going to benefit overall all the community.
Okay. Yeah, I like getting junk vehicles out of there. I think we just the devil in the details, making sure we set up the program so nobody can take advantage of it and or nobody can take over advantage of it. But I like the idea of trying to help get some of those junk vehicles out. And yeah, that just in my neighborhood alone, we could take a school bus and about 10 or 20 vehicles. So
Thank you.
Further discussion on amendment number 10. Is there any objection to amendment number 10?
Actually, I had a question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, sir.
Is there currently a fee at the landfill for taking your car there and disposing of it? Is that part of our fee schedule?
Through the mayor to
Well,
Mr. Hale,
maybe
I do
Alex-
not know that off the top of my head.
Alex is moving around there.
I know that there is a cost because we decant the vehicles, and I know roughly what that is, but I don't know if that's in our borough fee schedule that the assembly adopts. If you know, Alex, come on up. Just don't talk to us about disc golf.
Yeah,
I'd
we're
like to thank the
changing 5
assembly.
million to 10 million.
So Alex Strawn, planning director for the borough. I don't believe that you can just bring a vehicle to landfill. So there is no fee because they don't accept it. The borough does take vehicles that are that are in the right of way, and then occasionally from borough or from private property. But you can't just bring a car to landfill.
Well done, Mr. Strawn.
Thank you. Any objection to approving amendment number 10? I don't see any. Amendment number 10 has been adopted. Any further amendments before the deputy mayor sets the mill levy? Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead, sir.
I move to set the mill rates at 8.396 for the area wide and 0.387 for the non-area wide.
Discussion. Any objection to the motion? Okay, if not, then the motion for ordinance 23-023 has set the mill levy, but not the adoption of the ordinance
Exactly.
yet.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Nicely done, Mayor.
Okay. So now before you is the ordinance 23-023 that had 10 amendments and also set the mill levy area-wide as well as non-area-wide. Is there objection to the adoption of ordinance 23-023 as amended and the setting of the mill levy as noted? I don't see any objection to that. It's then ordinance 23-023 as amended has passed and the mill levy has been set. So the next item on our, at the present time, I don't have any vetoes. And from what I understand from the clerk, and she can correct me, as you know, we had a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night and also one for Thursday night. She said we could cancel tomorrow nights, but then we would leave Thursday nights because all of you have a chance for reconsideration by, I think, 5 o'clock tomorrow. And if nobody does reconsideration by 5 o'clock tomorrow, then Thursday night will be canceled too. So you'll get that information from the clerk sometime after 5 o'clock tomorrow. And correct me if that's.
No, you're correct.
Okay, already. So now we are to the point of mayor and assembly and staff comments. Assembly person, Ponoff, do you have parting comments?
Thank you very much for this wonderful experience, and thank you for those Cheyenne and whoever else helped and spoke. I appreciate an effort also on a couple of the amendments that I proposed, and hopefully they will serve the public as a whole. They're not limited to a specific district, so from that perspective, I want to say thank you, and thank you for this learning experience. It's probably, if I'm here next year, then I'll be a lot more comfortable with the process, and I think I'll be easier to work with. Thank you.
As long as you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money next year, it'll be okay. Assemblyperson Nowers, parting comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I have nothing against the sport of disc golf at all. I'm just a cheapskate. And anyways, or a miser. You could probably put a nicer word on there. I just really, again, wanted to commend the manager and the finance director who have given us this ability to have, in my time on the assembly, really attempt to have stable fiscal planning. So we're not, year to year, all of a sudden we got to come up with 10 million or 20 million. We're trying to keep these budgets stable and predictable. And that's for me as a taxpayer, like that, and, a business owner, that's what I'm looking for. Like I need to make investments when I need to make them, but I don't want to see my expenses go up wildly. So we could have cut this budget more, but then we might end up short over time. So the ability to just have a decent amount of reserves in case of those things that happen and not be onerous on the taxpayer. I think this really does that. And it's an increase just in the area wide. We're looking at about a 4% increase in property taxes for the average taxpayer. And depending on your fire service area and your road service area, you might see less than that, or even you might go negative depending on the area you're in. So you might pay less in taxes this coming year than you paid in the past year. And I just think that's a real testament. 4% increase in a year with a lot of inflation and increased expenses, and a 1% the year before that. I just think we need to keep our eyes out for, making sure that we are keeping up in the borough with the needs that are out there. So I know we have a big bills in terms of roads to build. I know there's schools that would like to be built. I think this is a really good foundation. And when we get to those points where we might have a bigger ticket item we want to fund, we've got some reserves, and then, we might have to get creative about how we fund them. But I just really appreciate the work that's been done to put this budget together. And I can't say enough about that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, parting comments.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak to a few of the numbers. First, I want to compliment everyone tonight. There were some great amendments, very creative amendments that definitely touch your local communities. So I great job to everybody on those. The average home, $354,000 in the borough right now. With last year's mill rate, what it was in last year's average, that would have been an area-wide expense of $2,854. It's now going to be $2,972, so an actual increase of $118, which is 4.1%, like Ms. Nauer stated. We did decrease the mill rate from the area-wide from 8.901 to 8.396. That's a 5.7% reduction. And again, we're only passing along a 4.1% increase. I think with the way that things are nationally right now, and with inflation, that's a very reasonable number. I think if you asked anybody right now if they would rather be paying only 4% more for gas or milk or eggs or bacon now compared to what they were last year, I think they would love to only be paying 4% more. With the decrease in some of the RSAs, there will be some parts of our community that actually pay an overall less amount than they did last year. So I think that's worth noting as well. That's not the case in some of the districts, but it is in mine, and I know it is in Stephanie's as well. So, yeah, that's it. Just wanted to speak to some of those numbers and and compliment everybody on their creativity and their professionalism tonight. It was a much less stressful budget season than it was last year, and I blame myself for last year's stress. So I was glad that things went a lot more smooth this year. And lastly, I would like to thank the school district for participating in the process and doing everything they can to help ease the pain on the taxpayer. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Madam Clerk. Mr. Attorney, do you have parting comments, or it's bye-bye, safe travels, enjoy your daughter's graduation?
So I won't be here for the manager's evaluation. But I don't know if the assembly's aware, there's these service awards. And what we found out the other day was that there was a service award made for somebody who then left the borough. So we kind of recycled it. I wanted to give Mike Brown a 2.5-year service award. We had to put a little sticker on. So I won't be here for his eval. So I wanted to present him with his.
What is a 2.5-year service?
Yay, for 2.5 years.
In honor of his accomplishments.
Oh, I see who left now.
So in honor of his accomplishments for the budget. That's all I have. Yes, as I mentioned before, I'll be going out of town. My daughter's graduating college, and then I'll be taking a drive up the Elkhorn coming back. So probably out for the next 2 weeks after this week. So Mr. Ashenbrenner will be with you at the next meeting.
Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments.
Yeah, just a few. The first one, I'm glad that the 6.3 is sunsetting soon, because I think that gives us a little more leeway to work with things. I was disappointed that Rob's amendment didn't get going, because I thought that was an absolutely, talk about creative, that was a really creative idea. I wish Bernier, that yours had, one of those had gone through. I voted for the budget because, and I don't see any point in reconsideration, because it would be a futile effort, and I know that. But it would have been a protest, but it would have been a lot of work for a lot of people, and I'm not interested in making more work. But I am encouraged by the idea that maybe my concerns, and they are to my heart, that need to be addressed. And I want some sort of a thing put forth where my concerns would be heard. And Mike, if you would kind of get out there with what we talked about, it gave me the ability to just stand my ground, but know that there is hope.
Yeah, so through the mayor to the assembly, and Katie's back here as well, Gardner from the school district. So we already have a joint committee on school issues that's established. Now, we've only been meeting quarterly, and frankly, not as regularly maybe as we could. What I would suggest is we kind of pick up the pace there a little bit and have the two administrations. They have 2 or 3 school board members represented on the school district side. We have currently 2 assembly members and the mayor that attend. I would suggest, and mentioned it to the mayor, that, Ms. McKee could be added to that group. That would probably require the mayor to kind of step back from the meeting, so we don't get into any quorum issues. But then we start meeting, and I would suggest we could even meet monthly if we needed to. But I would much rather see the 2 elected bodies have that discussion on a regular basis to address issues than having major blow-ups at 2 or 3 meetings a year when the 2 bodies meet as a whole. So we can start that as, pretty quickly. I'll take that, your request, as direction to go coordinate with the school district administration and see if we can get their side, make sure they've got the right members they want there. And then I'll work with the mayor and make sure we have the right members designated on our side, and we'll get those meetings set up and start that conversation to kind of put concerns on the table. I heard a lot of conversations tonight about, well, let's figure out what the concerns are and then communicate that to the school district and the school board, and let's have a conversation about what those solutions might look like. And I think that's a much better venue for kind of working our way through it, because it's complicated, right? It's government. So there's a lot going on there, but I think that would allow us to kind of pull it apart, tease it out a little bit, and figure out where we want to go from there. And then where it's appropriate, we could bring solutions or ideas back to the bodies on record with the whole bodies present. So that would be my suggestion, because it's an existing venue that we already have. So unless there's, I guess, an objection to that, or if anyone has different idea or suggestion they want to throw out there. That's how I would suggest we go after some of those concerns and make sure that you're at the table so that you can put those in your own words.
I really appreciate that. Gives me hope.
Okay, I don't see any objections, so. Oh, I think, yeah, okay. Assemblyperson 2, then, parting comments?
I'd like to say thanks to Mike and the staff. I think by adopting a budget the first night and it's all done, I think that should tell you did a fantastic job. I appreciate it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Hale, parting comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, to my knowledge, in my 4 years, we've never adopted the budget in the first night. And we have actually never adopted the budget prior to my birthday, which is on Thursday. So if you could, if you all could avoid from any reconsiderations, so I can have that day off, that'd be great. But yeah,
You're not gonna bring
it does speak to the effectiveness of the borough staff, Mike, Cheyenne, that for the last 2 years, we have had a budget that was almost adoptable right off the get-go. I mean, right out of the gate. You know, we could have passed this thing, you know, unamended tonight, I think, you know, if we had so chosen. It was quite good. And we have had, you know, unprecedented inflation the last 2 years. Our home prices have been just shooting through the roof. I think it was 14% last year. I think it was 10% this year. And we have managed to keep the mill rate, you know, considerably below the rate of inflation. And I think that really speaks to the capabilities of our team here at the borough. And I just want to thank you guys. That's awesome. I'd like to thank the assembly for continuing to support Butte's efforts to clean up out there. And I'd like to thank Mr. Fanoff for developing a new tool that could be used around the borough to help clean up, you know, as well. It's just a creative, it's a creative thing that is, you know, that's the best parts of government right there. You know, when you get to help the community, you know, clean up or achieve something that they want to do. I think it's just fantastic. So thank you, everybody. And hopefully we won't see you again until next Tuesday.
If we do meet on Thursday, are you bringing cake?
Sure, I'll bring cake if we have to meet on Thursday.
Well, we have.
It'll be carrot cake.
Okay. Assemblyperson Bernier, you have parting comments, sir?
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for, and the staff for putting the budget together like that. And you guys did a great job. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I wanted to ask God, thank you for all your blessings. Please grant your leadership wisdom. Please guide them with your hand upon their hearts and minds. May they promote peace and love. Please bless our families, Lord, our residents. Please help those that are in need. Give strength to the people that have addictions and are low, that they may look up to you, Lord. Please give us a good growing summer. Thank you for the nice breakup that you've given us. We just ask to follow you, Lord, and thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mike, do you have parting comments, sir?
Unfortunately, Madam Mayor, I do.
Oh, okay.
I've got 2 budget-related comments and then 2 non-budget-related comments. So I do want to assure you, we really are looking hard at evaluating each area at needs and revenue. Like, it's every year we learn something new about how we project that. You'll see that not every road service area mill rate changed at the same rate, same for every fire service area. So we are drilling down and trying to figure that out. And the departments are coming forward with, like, all right, what do you need this for? We're not looking to just accrue funding and it sets in an account. And I think Rob he likes to use the term, or Mr. Yett likes to use the term, that's, you know, deploy that funding. So we are evaluating that hard. And I just want to say hats off. Really, the credit goes to Cheyenne and Lindsay hiding in the back there. And then there's some other finance staff that obviously have a lot to do with this and assessments in different places. But those two are a pleasure to work with. And hats off to the departments. I did get kicked off of a couple of department directors' Christmas card list this year. So it is a process that is not always lots of fun for us. I'm super glad this process is over for this year. But I really do appreciate these two and just the work and the way they do it. They really have the borough's best interest at heart. So that's always a pleasure. That makes it a lot easier to do your job. On a non-budget related matter, we are getting with a comprehensive plan, the borough comprehensive plan. We're starting to establish a steering committee. I have an assembly member in mind that I might like to pluck out. I'm looking at you, Ms. McKee. But to participate potentially in that steering committee as we start to move forward with that. So I just wanted to put that out on the record so the assembly's not, if you hear about that, or if I ask Ms. McKee if there's any objection to that, or if there's others that want to be involved, let me know. So I just kind of wanted to put that out on the record tonight. And then lastly, a couple of assembly members had requested a Department of Forestry presentation at next week's regular meeting to talk about forestry management and wildfire mitigation. Unfortunately, the state forester is out of town next week. So he wants to be present. Obviously, he's aware of kind of the contentious nature of this Long Lake sale. So he doesn't want to send a staff member into the fray, if you will. So he has agreed to come and make a presentation, discuss with the assembly, allow you to interact and ask questions on the first regular meeting in June, which is June 6th. So if you're open to that, we'll get that established. And I didn't want there to be any surprises next week when he's not present and forestry is not prepared to make a presentation. So just kind of wanted to put that out there to the group so you know what to expect next week. And we will invite him on June 6th because I think that's as early as he's going to be available to come here in person.
Are we going to be postponing the Long Lake discussion until the first week of June then?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it is on the course the next week's meeting. At the beginning of the agenda, under approval of the agenda, somebody could move to take it off and put it on the 6-6 agenda, the motion to rescind. But that would have to be made at the May 16th meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and through the mayor to Mr. Bernier. So what we're inviting them to come and talk about is just general forestry management and wildfire mitigation, like not specific to that timber sale, because the state doesn't want anything to do with that timber sale, to be perfectly honest. They're like, that's a borough matter, you deal with it. But so I don't think they need to be on the same agenda. I think the Long Lake sale is the Long Lake sale, and we'll just need to figure that out ourselves. But forestry is, I think what it has kind of put a light on is the assembly wants to know more about forestry management practices and how that relates to timber sales, not specific to Long Lake necessarily. So in my opinion, it doesn't have to be moved. You could still take that motion and run with it. But I just wanted to inform the assembly that forestry will not be available next week. They will be here on June 6th.
Yes, go ahead, Assemblyperson 2.
Yeah, through the mayor to Mike. Will we have plenty of staff to talk about forestry and to talk about timber sales, talk about old growth, talk about all of this?
Through the mayor to Mr. 2. So, we have one forester. Forestry has probably more foresters than we have in our entire land management staff. So the idea was to bring a little bit more capacity to the table. I'm not suggesting that our forester doesn't know, but I think there is, with at least with some members of the community, there's a credibility issue there. You heard it in Willow when we were there. So the thought was, we can allow forestry to kind of lend their expertise to the conversation. I don't know if that necessarily affects the Long Lake timber sale decision. And I want to be careful about discussing that too much because that's on next week's agenda. But I didn't want there to be any surprises next week when you come in and you're like, where's forestry? And I'm like, they're not here. We did reach out to them. We even went through the governor's office. Todd was helpful in trying to get us there. They are reluctant to have a conversation that's tied to that sale. They just don't want to be associated. I'm not even going to, that's just straight up facts. They don't want to be, they're like, that's a borough matter. We don't want to be involved in that. So it would be up to the will of the body as to whether or not you postpone that to the June 6th meeting. If you see fit, obviously you could do that. That's when Department of Forestry or Division of Forestry will be here to speak.
Postpone that meaning the Long Lake thing.
Rescinding the resolution that you could do that. I'm suggesting to you that in the state's eyes, they don't see the two being connected in any way.
And Deputy Mayor?
I will make that motion at the beginning of the next meeting, and the reason why is our Forster's child graduates high school that evening and will also not be here for obvious reasons. That's way more important, I think, than waiting 2 weeks. I am allowed to say on the record here with everybody that I did ask staff to make a map in regards to that specific timber sale, and it's on the wall if anybody'd like to review it in the next week. So I think it's very informative, and I'll leave it at that.
Are you finished with your?
And I just wanted to say thank you to the assembly. I mean, you see how some of these budgets can go down in different places. I think all in all, process-wise, when you consider the interactions and how you all conduct yourself for what it's worth, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I had Nick write a resolution letter. Can you or tell us a little bit about that as far as it's going to be coming out the first week of June, or?
Yeah, I don't think we should talk about upcoming legislation as it's coming. I think the manager just made the comment because he was expecting someone else to show up. It'll run its ordinary course and be on.
Any other comments? I too agree. I think the administration did an excellent job for all the staff also and to the assembly. And it's great that you can disagree and ratchet down or ratchet up, whichever it is, and still everybody has a grin on their face and realize that it's not personal. And I think that's one of the biggest things you need to learn in politics is that it's not personal. You may disagree with somebody, but that doesn't mean that you can't continue to work with them, and it shouldn't relate to your relationships with them. So good job, everybody, and we will adjourn at 8:47.